All right, are we live here, folks? This is your host, Joe Imbriano, coming to you live from the streets of Orange County, California, on this Tuesday drive time edition. Today is April 18th, 2024. Just want to make sure we have a transmission here, folks. Looks like we do. All right. Now, excuse me, today is April 16th, 2024. Forgive me if I got the dates wrong here. All right, good. Got a signal. So I want to talk to you about a very interesting article that I had read yesterday as I was going through the different news feeds. And just before we get into that, I want to just put out my contact information. This is your host, Joe Imbriano. The Fullerton Informer, PO Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834. On the web at thefullertoninformer.com, WiFiDangers.com, VaxDangers.com, CellTowerDangers.com, 5GDangers.com, many other .coms, folks. All right? So, there's an article that was published, and I guess it was put out by researchers at Dartmouth College, right? And so here we go with this educational system stuff, right? This is the stuff that you're sending your children off, before the sun comes up to eat a donut and be strapped to a chair and get yelled at by somebody on a government paycheck, right? But Dartmouth College put out this article, and it's talking about the prevalence of these perfluoroalkyl substances, these PFAS compounds, these so-called forever chemicals, right? And they were happening to talk about that it's the dangers. Now they're telling us about the dangers of eating seafood, okay? Did you hear that, folks? They're telling us about the dangers of eating seafood now. Now, granted, you need to understand that their goal is to get you to eat plant-based fake food and lab-grown meat, Soylent Green wafers, and they want to get you off of all forms of natural foods. And what they're telling us in this Dartmouth University study, the so-called prestigious collegiate academic institution, right? Telling us that we need to avoid the seafood because it has high levels of these forever chemicals, right? So let's just talk about these forever chemical concentrations in the seafood, shall we? So they said lobster and shrimp tested the highest, which, by the way, happens to be two of my favorites. And I'm sure it's two of your favorites as well. Why? Because they happen to be absolutely delicious. And, they're full of cholesterol. And by the way, cholesterol is very healthy for you, especially if you're out in the sun having it converted through the reaction through your eyes and your skin to become cholecalciferol instead of floating around in your arteries getting calcified by the halite compounds that the municipal water disinfecting programs are putting into your water supply as they put the fluoride and the bromine and the chloramine and the fluorosilicic acid in the tap water, as if they cared about curing the incidence of dental caries, because if they were worried about tooth decay, they would be fluoridating the Coca-Cola, for crying out loud, right? But they don't do that. Instead, they got you inhaling this stuff when it's gaseous in your hot shower and it's penetrating your scalp and your skin, as it's the largest organ in your body. And of course, when the chlorine and the bromine goes through your skin and you don't get enough sunlight through your eyes and your skin, you block the conversion of the cholesterol into cholecalciferol, so it floats around in your bloodstream and just gets calcified by the chlorine you're huffing and drinking, right? How did I get off on this topic? Well, it's the educational system that tells everybody that cholesterol is bad and that heart attacks come from hamburgers, right? That's not true. Heart attacks come from sunglasses and blocking your eyes in chlorinated water. And trans fats, not from lobster or shrimp. But they want you to eat a plant-based diet so you can be super anemic. And so when they turn on the towers, you're going to bleed out like a potato bug that just got stepped on, right? I mean, come on. But that's what they want, folks. So they're the experts at Dartmouth College or Dartmouth University. But this stuff is insane. They're telling us in their study, check this out. They said that for each gram of flesh of the marine organism they tested, they found between 1.7 and 3 nanograms of polyfluoroalkyl substances or perfluoroalkyl substances or PFAS or the forever chemicals as we're being told, right? So let me ask you a question. Let's just say that you're not a half-baked, shake-and-bake, Diet Coke, ding-dong, microwave matrix Wi-Fi moron that stares at a satanic psychotronic electronic Ouija board called a Hellivision that they sold you as a smart TV that turned you into a moron. Or let's say you're not one of these poor innocent children that got rammed through these colleges because you stupid parents thought it was a means to an end, when in fact it is really just a big circle jerk to weaponize them against us. Well, that's exactly what they're doing with Dartmouth University study, because they're telling us that we got to run for the hills away from the seafood, not because it's rich in minerals and essential fatty acids and protein and all of the wonderful mineral elements in the ocean like manganese and magnesium and chloride and iodine and copper and zinc and selenium and all the trace minerals and the wonderful concentration got created in this amazing soup called an ocean, right? Oh no, we've got to run for the hills because they're telling us that out of 100 million particles of fish flesh, 1.7 to 3 of the 100 million are perfluoroalkyl substances. Now let me ask you a question. Let's just say that you were at the in a place that they dump all the used tires at, and let's say that there were 300 million tires. Let's just keep it simple. Let's just say that there were 100 million tires at the tire dump. Well, and you have to beware of the 1 to 3 tires that contain a bunch of razor blades sticking out of them. Now tell me, folks, would you be worried if you were surrounded by 100 million tires, if there were just 1 to 3 tires that were dangerous to you? Are you kidding me? But this is what you stupid idiots are forcing your children to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and ramming them off to school with a donut or a ding-dong and a diet joke in their backpack, and they're staying up till 2 in the morning learning a bunch of Shakespeare science crap so they can put out absolute bullshit like this to get you to stop eating things that are good for you, so you'll choose the plant-based option or the lab-grown meat option, so you can become an anemic, emasculated moron that can be dusted off by cranking up a cell tower. My gosh. My gosh. What the heck is it? Oh, you don't like my yelling, don't you? You know what I don't like? I don't like watching young children carrying 50 pounds of books on their back when they're 5 to 6 years old, and then they got this thing they put in their lap that burns up their ovaries that the teacher gives them, right? Oh, they can't use a book, they got to use these tablets. Even though you can't learn anything from a tablet, they'll make you use them, huh? Oh, but they got to do this not for kindergarten, not for first grade, not for second grade, not for third grade, not for fourth grade, not for fifth grade, not for sixth grade, not for seventh grade, not for eighth grade, not for ninth grade, not for 10th grade. not for 11th grade, not for 12th grade. Are you sick of this yet? It gets better, because then you got to go to the 13th grade, the 14th grade, and the 15th grade to get a degree. And then you got to go to the 16th degree, the 16th grade, and the 17th grade to get a master's degree. And then if you really want to lose it, go for another 4 to 6 to 8 years, and then you get one of those butcher's outfits with your initials embossed on it, right? And then you're really done for. Tell you something, folks. I know somebody that spent 25 years of her life getting advanced degrees in chemistry and other fields, and she's making COVID tests. What a waste of a life, right? Well, this is what's going on, folks. Except here's the problem. They're waging psychological warfare on us, and they're using our own children after they've run them through the trauma-based mind control and destroyed their lives and their minds to lie to us, to make us afraid to eat something that is delicious and nutritious, right? Oh, I know it. You don't like the tone of my voice. But you know what? I don't like the crap they're putting out every day by these so-called experts, by these so-called, well now, we here at the university have determined that this information is extremely important and extremely newsworthy, and therefore Google is going to promote it with the algorithm, and we're going to use our prestigious name and affiliation to make sure that the credibility is not questioned. You know, I'm going to be honest with you, folks. The academic institutions, they're not just a fraud, folks. They're a failure. And they're an end in and of themselves, because young minds go there to die, all right? People that can think don't go to those places. Why? Because they're smart enough to make it without being told what to do for 25 freaking years. Listen, there are people who are making a good living by using their creative abilities, by using their hands, by using their mind, and not working for the devil, okay? It's really important that you understand this, all right? What these people have done is they've created the structure by which they're taking your children out of your home at a young age, and you're sending them off to school, pushing them over the edge. Now, some of them, granted, they will jump off the parking structure because they failed their test. Some of them will turn to drugs. Some of them will turn to medications. Some of them will turn to illicit sexual proclivities. And some of them will turn to all of the aforementioned in some bizarre combination just to cope with what is so unnatural and so unnerving. But yet no one seems to question the absolute nonsensical insanity that is coming out of these institutions, that has given us a society of sheeple that wear face diapers, that go to grocery stores with dishwashing gloves, muumuus, and gator masks, where they're touching and handling all of the produce. And they're not thinking about the fact that if this thing really was real, then it would be in every nook and cranny of the apple and the English muffins, right? I mean, think about this, folks. They would have had to have disinfected every ounce of packaging, clothing, and even wastewater and sewage effluent. They would have probably have to have incinerated it and taken it to a nuclear waste disposal facility to keep the biohazard containment at bay, if all of this was what they told us. And you want to ruin your children? Go right ahead! You can't blame me for trying to warn you. You can't blame me for trying to tell you the truth. Folks, they don't want you eating steak. They don't want you eating food that's grown out in the sun. They want you eating produce that's grown in a shipping container under pink LED on some sort of chemical slurry that they call organic fertilizer. they take these things and they take the seeds and they plant them in about a cubic inch of lava rock, and they're living in a sewage sludge slurry of all kinds of synthetic chemicals and plant food, and they're grown under a lighting system that if you walked in there, you'd have to wear sunglasses because it's such an unnatural, painful frequency. And yet, food is petrified light, folks. The stuff that's grown, the vegetables and the fruits, it's petrified light. And when the resonant energy of that is altered, then the resonant energy of the petrified light that's been turned into food by God. So not only are you eating food that they want you to eat, and oh yeah, let's get into the appeal, right? Mono and diglycerides. I mean, now they're putting trans fats on the apples. Folks, did you hear what I just said? Unbelievable. Look, where do you want me to begin? I mean, does anybody see what they're doing to us? Well, I can tell you right now that if you're in education, you can't. And if you work in education, you won't. And if you're retired from education, you're afraid to face what you've been part of. But let me tell you something. We all have a duty. My gosh, these roads are bad. Oh, I can tell it back in my hometown here because the tie rod ends and the strut rod mounts and the control arm and the ball joint and the metal frame of this convertible top are all flexing in unison to try to give me a smooth ride in this 30-year-old contraption. And so far, so good. I guess I made it through the worst part. Anyway, folks, come on. Look at the absolute crap in the textbooks. Look at what your children are being forced to do for homework. Look at what they're doing in college. And you got to tell them, look, if they want to go on that path, then that's on them. But don't force them down that path. Do you realize how many young people today are miserable because of what the parents have forced them into? Really, it's the truth, folks. And by the way, young people, I'm going to tell you something. I want you to listen to me. This is really important. You know, you young people that are in school, if you think that you're not intelligent because you're not getting good grades, or you think you're not of any value, or, you know, someday you're not going to amount to anything because you can't get all these, 4.3 GPA, let me tell you something. If you are not doing well in school, that means you're a lot smarter than the people who are. Because the school system today and the educational system today is a criminal enterprise, and it takes a highly discerning individual to push off and push back against the brainwashing. And the really smart ones are the ones that don't do well in school because they instinctively and intrinsically reject the programming. And that is not a sign of lack of intelligence. As a matter of fact, the worse your grades are, tend to be more indicative of how truly intelligent you are. Okay? Does that make sense? And I want you to tell your children that. And you need to understand that the smarter someone is, the less likely they are to be conned. And when they're young and they get conned at a young age, that's a bad outcome, folks. That's a really bad outcome. You look at these people that have gotten these 4.2 GPAs, and you watch them try to climb a fence when they're getting chased by a guy with a gun, or you watch them try to change a tire when the thing goes flat, or you watch them walk through a grocery store with glasses that are thick enough to stop a bullet, or you watch them as they sit there and they question something as they've got their mouth and their nose connected to a face diaper. You watch these people who go along with everything they're told and question nothing. You watch what happens to them in a few years. Well, I've got news for you, folks. The people that are going to inherit the earth are not the idiots. It's going to be the ones who reject the programming and who are not afraid to do what is necessary to stand up and say no. Those of you who want to go along and say, give me more of this, give me more classes, give me more AP this, give me more AP that, you're going to be hooked up to a drip in some sort of Black Mirror existence with a VR headset on, and you will be the one enjoying your plant-based milkshake while the rest of us will be carrying the torch for humanity. This has been another broadcast of the Fullerton Informer with your host, Joe Imbriano, P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834. On the web at thefullertoninformer.com, folks. You got to go through that website. It's got about 1,000 articles over the past 11 years that I've written. You're going to see stuff on there and hear stuff that you never heard of before. And let me tell you something, folks. Let me tell you real quick in closing. In 2013, I launched that site, and let me tell you what the motto of the website is. Let me tell you what the tagline is on that website. This is what I vowed to stand behind when I launched this site on March 5th of 2013. I stated the following, that everything that you have been told is a lie, and because you have the right to know, we dare to push the envelope. Joe Imbriano is the Fullerton Informer. End quote. March 2013. May that statement be your value statement to society, folks. And may you live and breathe truth in the name of Jesus Christ. Take care, and thank you all for tuning in.